The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Tuesday night. No, it's Thursday night. What am I talking about? March 12th, 2026. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 325, if you're keeping score at home, and you should. Our guest tonight is Rabbi MICHAEL BARCLAY. He's the host of a new radio show on CRN Digital Radio called The Rabbi's Table. He's written a book called, we'll put the book on the screen here in just a second. The book is called Sacred Relationships, that came out in 2013. And he's a widely read columnist for like PJ Media, the Jewish Journal, and a former professor of theology at Loyola Marymount University. We're going to put him on the screen right now before I make a fool out of myself anymore. Here's MICHAEL BARCLAY coming from his home office in Los Angeles, California. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the good work that you do and continue to do for our country and our world.
Oh man, I'm trying. That's all I can tell you. I couldn't decide what my first question was going to be here, Michael. So let's just get into this. What's your take on what's going on in the Iranian war right now?
Wow. Is that sort of like, the big question, how did God create the universe? I mean, we're just going to start with the big questions.
Yeah, big questions, yeah.
Look, I think there are a lot of challenges. One of the things I think everyone needs to recognize is that this is not a war like any other war that the United States has been involved in. This is not a war over land or power or money or politics or anything else. It's not a war defending Israel. It's a war defending Western civilization, because this is a theological war. The Iranian regime, the Shia Muslims who control Iran, the Ayatollah, this is their theology, is to create a worldwide caliphate of Sharia law, and in so doing, to take over the entire world in that way. This is really their goal, and it's always been their goal. They view this as a 1,400-year war, of which this is only the most recent battle. We need to understand that that's their viewing perspective. It's not about land. It's not about anything else. It's about theology.
So I got to stop you for a second. What do you say about a religion where you go to heaven for killing people?
I try very hard not to condemn people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first thing. I have a lot of problems with things that are being said or that are in the Quran. Over 200 times it says to kill the Jew. It actually says in one point in the Quran that the day of judgment will not arise until every Jew is killed, and the few that are left will hide behind trees and rocks, and the tree will call out, "O Abdullah, O Muslim, there's a Jew here, come kill him." So there's real problems in the Quran. I think we need to remember, because we also have to remember we're dealing with people, not just a theology and book.
Well, but hold it. As far as they're concerned, aren't we just dealing with theology in a book?
As far as the Shia Muslims are, absolutely. As far as Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, absolutely. And I want to be clear on this too, Jim, that after what Hamas did on October 7th, it is clear to me that they're the modern version of Amalek and need to be destroyed, not defeated, but destroyed. And unlike the Christian scriptures, which are all about deepening your relationship with God through accepting Christ into your heart, the Jewish scriptures, which are about deepening your relationship with God through a Jewish pathway, or the Hindu or Buddhist scriptures, the same thing. The Quran, very much of it is about creating a worldwide caliphate. But I also want to be clear that just like in Catholicism or Judaism, 10 to 20% are observant. 10 to 20% of Jews keep Sabbath. 80 to 90% are 2-day-a-year Jews, just like 80 to 90% of Christians go to church on Christmas and Easter. That's true in Islam too, and I think we should be aware of that. but we need to reframe everything. We think as Westerners that the quote unquote secular Muslims who aren't practicing all the craziness of Islam, we think that they're mainstream and Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran are extremists. We have to invert our thinking. Mainstream Islam is kill the kafir, and the kafir means an infidel. You, me, even a non-practicing Muslim is a kafir. That is mainstream Islam. The other 80 to 90% are outliers. They're actually the radicals, and we need to reframe our thinking that way. I think that's important, so we don't judge everybody under one huge umbrella just because the theology, the text, is so incredibly problematic and so really geared towards war and politics, and it's a business plan. In many ways, that's what the Quran is, to create a worldwide business. But I think we should also be conscious that there are, just like there are many secular Christians and Jews, there are secular Muslims. They don't observe the tradition. They have nothing to do with it. We need to remember that those kind of people exist as well. But the theology is really problematic.
Yes, and those people that you were saying are now the secular Muslims who are, now, and I think you've correctly identified this as not the mainstream. They're not running Iran. This country has been set up basically to destroy Western civilization. I mean, and we have been ignoring this we've been ignoring this for almost 50 years. I mean, that's the goal of this, like you said, this quote unquote organization,
Well, it's not just the last 47 years we've been ignoring it. We've been ignoring it for a very long time. One of our first wars, I think it's in the 1780s, although I'm not 100% sure. One of the first wars that the United States ever had were with the Barbary pirates, who were devout Muslims. They were, even then, they were trying to conquer the world for a worldwide caliphate. And we need to recognize that if you don't believe in Sharia law, you are an infidel, period. And an infidel, there are three choices to do with an infidel, according to Quran: enslave, convert, or kill. That's it. That's why it's so crazy when you see these people with signs, queers for Palestine.
Oh, God. Michael, it's the biggest joke I've heard in 20 years. I keep talking about this on the show constantly. Yeah, you want to be queer for Palestine? Go over there.
I got two that are better than you. There are two signs that are even more ludicrous. One was queer Jews for Palestine, and this was my personal favorite: queer rabbis for Palestine. Now, I wouldn't even say they're rabbis, but they call themselves that. And it's like, okay, all you are is an opportunity for them to behead you, sew your head back on, behead you, sew your head back, and keep doing it. Yeah. And they're cheering for that. And it's so insane and so crazy and so sad that we even have to have these kind of discussions.
Yes. Okay. So that's the next question. Why is this crazy shit happening? Let's just let me broadly ask you, because I have some thoughts on this, but of course it's like you're the guest. What is the genesis of anti-Semitism? Why, and also why is it raised its head here in the 21st century, where I thought we never see it again, and now it's almost normalized in the United States, almost.
So it is normalized from both the left and the right. From the left, it's been a long time, and now it's normalized with crazies like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, these guys. Right. All right, so there's a whole theological understanding of where anti-Semitism comes from. There's a 4th century. In the 4th century, there's a mistranslation of the Torah. It's called the Vulgate, and it says that Moses has horns. Remember, the Jews at the time did not accept Jesus as the Savior. He did not meet as the Messiah. He did not meet the qualifications that they believed in, that we as Jews believe in. Although I got to tell you, Jim, my belief is that the Messiah is going to come. I'm going to say welcome. You're going to say welcome back, and we're both going to accept him. I believe that very, very strongly. That the Mashiach, the Messiah, is not going to reject anyone of faith and love. But you've got this 4th century mistranslation that says Moses has horns when he comes down from Mount Sinai, so you have this myth that Jews have horns. In 1144 in Norwich, England, a young boy, Catholic boy, disappears. It's right around the Passover Easter time. The local priest says that's because Jews bring blood to make matzah. So now we killed God, according to these myths, because that's going on. We have horns, we drink blood. And all this stems from people who really have not accepted Christ in their heart. And their faith is very questionable. So rather than looking at their own faith and deepening it, they'd rather attack and say, well, wait a minute, if the Jew survives, let alone thrives, he must be involved with Satan, because otherwise it's questioning my belief. And it shouldn't. My belief should not make you question yours. It should deepen yours. One of the greatest compliments that I repeatedly got when I taught at Loyola Marymount, which is a Jesuit university, was students would say, my Catholicism has become deepened by studying with Rabbi Barclay. That's my goal. My goal is not to make more Jews. My goal is to make every Catholic be the best Catholic, every Christian be the best Christian, every Jew be the best Jew. So this has gone on for 2,000 years. In the Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, who was the chief rabbi of Great Britain and died a few years back, had a great understanding. He phrased it very cogently. He said that in the Middle Ages, we were hated for our religion. But once you get into the 18th, 19th century, we're hated for our culture, because we're doing math, science, music, whatever it is. And by the time you get into the 20th century, we're hated for our nation. Anti-Zionism is Jew hatred. It is anti-Semitism. After World War II, the generation that we grew up with, you and I grew up with, after World War II, then something just happened. There we go. After World War II, it was not popular to say, I hate Jews. Just wasn't. I mean, you just had these concentration camps, all these horrible things. And that was the case up until you get into 1964. In 1964, with the funding of the Soviet Union, the United Arab League hires a public relations company called Yotzi, Armstrong, and Hirsch out of New York. They say, we're getting our butts kicked in war by Israel, and we're losing the PR battle. What do we do? And Yotzi, Armstrong, and Hirsch said, we need to create a victim. And then that moment, you had the Palestinian cause started. The leader was an Egyptian man named Yasser Arafat, and they created a victim. There is no historical Palestine. There's never been a Palestine. There's never been a kingdom, a stamp, a coin, anything, right?
Yeah, I know that.
So they created this. They made this myth up, and they created this fantasy, but they kept preaching it, and it became a reality. By the time you get into the 80s, remember that unholy alliance of Islam and other people who hate, they've all coalesced into we hate the Jew. And now by the time you get into the late 80s, early 90s, you're not going to say we hate the Jew. You're going to say we hate Israel.
Right.
And that's how you capture anti-Semitism. By the time you get into the 2000s with Obama, Tlaib, Omar, these people who are saying there's an Islamophobia, I'm not scared of Muslims. I'm very clear. They want me dead. You know, traditional Muslims, the Shia Muslims, the Ayatollah, they want me dead. I'm not scared of it. That's the truth.
Well,
so it becomes accepted is that.
If you don't mind my saying so, the vast majority of Americans don't even give a second thought about Islam. They don't, it's like they don't care either way. They don't even think about it.
No, and they need to. They need to. There was just, I don't know if you read this, it was just released yesterday, on Wednesday, that a memo came out last week from the FBI to law enforcement agencies that they were expecting Iran was trying to plan an attack on the coast of California through sea launch.
Right.
We need to be aware of this. As Americans, we need to be aware of this. It's a fight that they have against Western civilization. Mandami is not a socialist. A socialist doesn't let people die in the street because of snow. A socialist doesn't let the trash not be collected. He's a Muslim. He's posing as a socialist, but he is a devout Muslim.
Yes, I know.
And every time that there's this concept in Islam that when something is dedicated to Allah, it is always Allah's. So when they get onto Times Square and they do Allahu Akbar prayers, they are dedicating Times Square to Islam, as they understand it. And it's not an issue of, they have a right to that land now. Rather, according to Quran and the Hadith, they have an obligation. We need to be aware of that. And it's not just an external enemy with missiles, etc. It's also an internal enemy. We need to be conscious of that as Americans. We need to be aware that this fight in Israel is just the front line. America is the last line of defense. It's the little state and the great state. That's what they call us. It's the front line and last line of defense of literally Western civilization. And we need to be aware of this. This is not a fight for Israel.
Right.
Israel is our hero. It's an American hero because they're taking on the fight.
You were talking about the history of anti-Semitism, and you touched on something that I've thought a long time. And I think, and of course, you're right. This probably doesn't go back 2,000 years. It probably goes back 200 years. But I think a lot of it is frankly based in envy. The Jewish religion is both probably the most pragmatic religion on the planet, and also in many ways the most functional. I mean, Jewish people worldwide have a very functional society. And I use as an example, look at Tel Aviv, took a piece of dusty real estate and turned it into one of the great cities in the world in 50 years. I mean, it's really true. I think Pete, I think part of it's envy. You might think this is a crazy analogy, but I compare it to, I think that's the same thing with gay men. Straight men envy gay men because of the setup, they can have sex anytime they want. And I think a lot of the hatred toward gay men is envy, and I think the same thing's true of Jews too.
Well, we're such a small percentage of the world. These haters like Tucker Carlson have more followers than there are Jews on the planet.
I know. If I'm right, Jewish people make up 0.2% of the world population. Am I right about that?
I believe it's 0.2. There's about 15 to 16 million Jews in the world.
Right. Less than 1%. Right.
Here's we talk about Judeo-Christian values because Jesus was born, lived, and died as a Jew. In his human form, that's what he was. We can all agree upon that part. But religiously, Judaism is much more about action than words. So both traditions want you to both have faith in God and act in a good way. But if you can only do one, traditional Catholicism says, well, the priest can forgive you. Traditional Judaism is, no, you have to fix it yourself. So it's about action. Where you really see this, Jim? Have you ever been to a Jewish wedding?
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah.
So in a Jewish wedding, you don't have the questions about, do you take this man for your husband and saying, I do. It's not any questions. Rather, you take the wedding ring, you put it on the index finger of your partner. You say, with this ring, you're consecrated to me according to the laws of Moses in Israel. If your partner accepts it, they don't say, I do. They take the ring off their index finger and put it on their ring finger. It's an action. So Judaism is very action-based, number one. Number two, one of our deepest values, and this goes back over 2,000 years, is that you want, the traditional Jewish value is you want your children to be better educated than you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to do that over a certain period of time, you're going to have some people who really are educated, who are stellar in that way. So, I don't think Judaism is the best religion in the world. I really don't. It's the best for me.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful. I spend Holy Week with a group of people out in Arizona. I taught at a Jesuit university. I have such a love for the different Christian sects, the Catholic tradition, and it gives me such pain to see these crazies like Fuentes and Candace who claim to be Catholic, and what they're doing has nothing at all to do with
no, this is the thing, I did not foresee this about the fact. I mean, we've been dealing now for about 20, 30 years with the absolute craziness of 20% of the left. I mean, they're insane. And now we have that rising up on the right. And I did not foresee this. I thought we would end up being a party of common sense. And now you're right. Now we have these. It seems like there's a certain percentage of the populace in the United States that's basically against anything that makes any real sense.
And it's always the Jews' fault because numerous people, including Mark Twain, have said that the Jews are the canary in the coal mine because we're always the smallest minority. You can always judge how a culture is by how they treat the smallest minority.
Right.
And October 7th. October 8th, everyone was so Hamas is horrible. But by November 8th, all of a sudden the anti-Semitism came out.
Yeah.
Oh, how dare Israel defend itself. I wrote an article over 2 years ago for PJ Media, where I'm a columnist, over 2 years ago, calling out Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson as anti-Semites because their dialogue was so clearly about hating Jews. If you listened to it, now I'm more sensitive to it as a rabbi than someone else may be. But it's in both cases, I've been proven to be right. The moment Tucker Carlson compared October 7th to the fentanyl crisis in America, I knew something's wrong with the guy. The fentanyl crisis is horrible, but it's people choosing to take a drug. Those were 1,200 people who just raped, killed, murdered, etc., by an outside source. But it says something about it, and it's coming from the right, and it's becoming accepted on the right, which is, as a conservative, politically conservative rabbi, and I keep my politics off the pulpit, but as a politically conservative rabbi, it's very scary to see that how many of these people have fallen in line so they can get more clicks, so they can get more views and make more money, or because they're just nuts.
That's the terrible part. A lot of these people are simply doing this strictly for money. But then again, on the other hand, like you said, a lot of them are just crazy too. I mean, I don't, I've been involved in this podcast thing for several years now. I mean, whether it makes any difference or not, unfortunately, I think Tucker's doing this for money. Candace Owen, I think, is actually crazy. But I don't know if the effect is the same. So I don't know if if it even matters,
Well, I agree with you, except, the interview that Tucker did with Mike Huckabee, and I wrote an article about this for PJ as well. If you look at that interview and you look at Tucker Carlson 5 years ago or even a couple of years ago, and I agree with you, Candace is she's a very vapid and ignorant woman.
Right.
It's just really, she's not knowledgeable theologically. And she's just some of these conspiracies. I think she's just a grifter. In Tucker's case, you watch that Huckabee interview, and I agree with you. I think he's probably getting paid in some way. I mean, how can you say that it's good to be a Christian in Qatar when you can't have a church in Qatar? But if you watch the interview, did you watch the whole thing? Did you see the interview? Okay. So in the middle, it must happen 15, 20 times in the interview. He'll be talking with Huckabee, and then he'll say something, and all of a sudden there will be this inappropriate maniacal laughter.
Yeah, I heard this, and maybe it was even your piece that I read this about in too. I can't remember. Right?
People mention this. So it's it's so sad that children are dying, and that's a sign of one of three things: either a mental illness, a neurological issue, like God forbid a tumor, or an addiction problem. There's a term for it, that kind of spontaneous, inappropriate laughter. And that wasn't there if you watch his interviews a few years ago. Mm-hmm. He didn't do that. And he's doing this. So I think you're right, he's getting paid, although I would, I know that any of us can prove that, so it's only supposition. But his behavior in that interview, and more as time is going on, is demonstrating, I think to anyone who's looking, that Tucker either has a God forbid mental illness, God forbid some sort of neurological problem like a tumor, God forbid, or God forbid an addiction of some sort, because that's a symptom of.
I know you're not the only person who brought this up. People mentioned this about that some of the laughter is very inappropriate, and it's like I might also, and this, but it's not for me to say because I'm like not an armchair psychologist. I'm a terrible one. It might just be from somebody who just knows they're lying too,
Well, but even someone who knows they're lying doesn't typically do it that often and that over the top.
That's true. You're right.
And it might be whatever it is. It shows that there's an imbalance inside of him, and I think we need to be aware of that we've got social influencers like Candace Owens, who thinks that Charlie's wife killed him. That was after she thought Israel killed him. That was after she thought, every other conspiracy she's had. I mean, even Matt Walsh has taken. You've got Tucker, who's clearly there's something dramatically off. You've got this absolutely dangerous, crazy young man named Nick Fuentes, who idolizes Hitler. You've got the Hodge twins, who are huge social influencers in their community, who are totally ignorant, and they're learning about Jewish theology from Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
And they're all quoting, whenever they quote Talmud, and they say, the Talmud says this, and look how horrible it is. They're actually not quoting the Talmud. All those memes that you see, those aren't Talmudic quotes. They're all quotes from a book called Talmud Unmasked. I wrote a piece on this, I think, for American Thinker a few months back. But they're all from a book called Talmud Unmasked written by a 19th century defrocked priest who was a felon, who makes it look like an academic book and says all these things. This says the Talmud says this, the Talmud says that, the Talmud says this. Not only are they not actual quotes, so the Talmud's all online, you can see it. But beyond that, they're in books that aren't even in the Talmud. They're just made up titles. But that's what Candace and Nick Fuentes talk. That's what all these people quote. And it's 3 minutes of fact checking. You can go see the Talmud online. There's numerous sources for it with translations in English. And you can see, wait, what they're saying is just
bullshit.
Thank you. Thank you. I was trying to figure out.
Welcome.
They came to me in Hebrew, it came to me in Arabic, it came to me in Spanish, and I was trying not to say that. So
we
you.
Don't have to worry about the FCC rules here. So it's like, it's bullshit. But the unfortunate for the vast majority of people don't take the time or have the energy to check this stuff. That's a terrible thing.
It's easy to check.
Yeah.
It's really easy to check. And when someone says, like this priest in 1144, and which there are people still today who believe that Jews have blood, okay, in their matzah and things like that.
Here,
I apologize. I don't know what just happened.
I don't. Well, it's the interweb, man. You can't. I actually have your book on the screen here. I was talking it up while you were coming on. So this is your book, Sacred Relationships from 2013, still in print.
It's still. We're actually re-releasing it with a different publisher. Got one this year. It was actually published originally by the largest Catholic publisher in the country. And then I have a book coming out this year as well on the Jewish understanding of abortion, which is very different. It's very similar. Most people think that Judaism feels one way about abortion because they hear these Reform rabbis saying, oh, we're pro-abortion, etc. Nothing could be farther from the truth. It's an entirely different argument than the Catholic or Christian argument against abortion, but it is still a very clear. We are not in favor of abortion. It is to be used only to save the mother's life. Period.
Yeah. So what were we talking about before you got cut off? I can't even remember.
I got lost. We were having so much fun.
We were. All right. So, but let me ask you
about blood. We're talking about blood. So it says in the Torah, I can't have. So these people are saying you're supposed to drink blood, right? When you're making matzah, you're supposed to have it in different food. The Torah says very specifically, we can't have anything that has blood in it. That's why kosher meat is so salty. It has to be put on a plank. Salt has to be put on it to draw out all the blood. I can't eat steak tartare. And yet these crazies are quoting Talmud Unmasked, a 150-year-old book by a crazy guy. And people like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes are quoting them, saying that this is what the Talmud said, and it's just not accurate. It's just not true. So it's just another excuse to hate the Jew, which is really, really sad and painful.
I'm going to ask you for your personal opinion here. Why do so many people follow these people? I mean, Candace Owens makes posts that 30 million people read, and I don't understand why anybody bothers to read her at all.
I think it's true that what was the saying? A sucker born every minute.
Yeah.
And grifters are grifters, whether it's a con man playing three-card Monte on the streets of New York, whether it's George Duvall playing the game of Pharaoh on the Mississippi riverboats, or whether it's Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, these people doing what they're doing. People like to follow. It's easier to be a sheep than a sheepdog.
Yeah.
Protect people. And, they're charismatic. And, Candace, her history, she was working at Vogue, and then she rebranded herself. She was far left. She was a leftist. Rebranded herself as a conservative.
Right.
Figuring out I'm the one black, pretty young woman conservative. They're going to love me. And she was embraced by people like Dennis Prager, God bless him, and different. All of them have subsequently said, there's a real problem with this woman. She parlayed one thing into another until ultimately ending up at the Daily Wire, and then ultimately starting her own. But she's a grifter. Yeah. That's what she is. And that's what most of these people are. You and I are old enough to remember when what was in entertainment, whether it was radio, film, television, whatever it might be, it was vetted. It was vetted by agents and managers and producers and studio executives. You didn't just set up your podcast and suddenly you're an expert because you're charismatic. Right. There's no vetting system. And so you have these people who are just crazy and saying things, and people will believe them. And it's, I'm reminded of my grandmother, God rest her soul, to be 100 years old. And in the 1990s, my brother and I got her web TV. Do you remember web TV?
I do.
So she could have the internet on the TV, and she was already in her 90s. And so hooked it up on her television. And for about an hour and a half, we were on a chat room. And at first she couldn't believe she was actually talking to people in Australia and England. So we were on it for an hour and a half, and we sat down, had some tea, and I said, so Grandma, what do you think? And as only someone with that kind of age and wisdom could say, she said, this is either going to save the world or destroy it, and I'm glad I'm not going to be alive to see which.
Yeah. And that's, my God, that's prescient. Because, yeah.
What comes with age and wisdom. We have a very powerful medium now where there are no filters. And the more outrageous you can become, the more people will watch you, like they'll watch an accident on the freeway.
That's right.
The Jerry Springer show has become amplified times 10 million times, 10 billion times, with so much of the clicks on the internet. And so that's a real problem. I mean, look, I've been asked to do a podcast and a radio show for a long time, Jim. And I said no. And the reason we just started this show is to have dialogue, not debate. For people of opposing views or similar views you can disagree without being disagreeable, to actually both be entertaining and fun and learn and grow. That's our goal. And this first episode comes Sunday with Ambassador David Friedman, former ambassador from the U.S. to Israel. We need what you're doing, what we're going to try and do. We need to counteract all this craziness and put some filters on things. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. There could not be more wisdom than that, man. You're absolutely right. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. Absolutely.
Doesn't mean you should. And the grifting for the clicks and the glory and the fame and the money, it's not good for the soul, and it's not good for the world.
No,
and part of the problem is, what do you do when you have these influencers who have such large followings and who are so connected politically? We can both accept that there's something wrong with Tucker Carlson. On whether there's something physically wrong, there's clearly something wrong with the way he's thinking, with the way he's processing, with the way he's interacting in the world. But
I want to interject here for a second. You just touched on something that's really, really important. It's not good for the soul. The people who are doing this, it's like this will eat you out from the inside out. I mean, it's like there's this is not a good way to live. It isn't. I'm not making a lot of money, but I sleep well at night, And also the other thing is, and I never really thought about this until you just said it just like 5 minutes ago. This show is based on discussion, not debate. There's the confrontational interview, and some people are very good at it. I mean, I know Bill O'Reilly. He's fantastic at it. He's the best in the world. I can't do it. I'm not too good at it. I just want to talk to people, and I'm trying to maybe we can educate somebody, have people on like you that educate the public a little bit. Don't want to do the debate. I don't, and I think it's very good that you're doing this.
Well, so you and I come from the same perspective, right? I'm not interested in debate. Debating by definition as a winner or loser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Not interested. And then there are the people like Bill who are very good at debates. Ben Shapiro is another one.
Right.
He's fabulous at actually pointing out points.
He is.
But then there's a third level, which is not about trying to grow or have discussion, not about trying to make your point, but let's just be as outrageous as we can, and people will watch us. And that's the Nick Fuentes praising Hitler. That's the Candace Owens saying that that Macron's wife is actually a male. That's Tucker Carlson just spouting off this anti-Israel stuff. There's that level, and that's a whole other level that is both dangerous and damaging to the soul. But if you're that far away, if you can do that, you are so already distanced from your neshama, from the essence of your soul, that you're not aware of it anyhow.
I suppose that's true. I've never thought about that, but you're probably right. That's right.
So do you remember the movie All That Jazz with Roy Scheider?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's a great line at the end of it where he says, the guy was so good at playing games, he forgot where reality ended and game began. We just had a holiday of Purim where we wear masks. You wear a mask long enough, it becomes stuck to you, and you believe that mask is true. And so I think those people like Candace and company, the Tate brothers and Carlson, these guys, I think they're so distanced from who they ever really were that they have become that mask. They've become the persona that they were using in order to achieve success. And I think at this point, they believe their own craziness, which is terrifying, especially when you count the number of followers that they have who just say, oh, well, if they're saying it, it must be true.
Right.
And it's not.
Hey, Michael, let me end with a question here that I ask a lot of people. And it's not necessarily rhetorical because I've been trying to figure out the nature of this myself. What do you think is the true nature of evil? The way I look at it, evil is maybe intrinsically exists, or in a lot of instances, evil is just the intense stupidity of humans, and in many of the instances you brought up here, Fuensis and Candace Owens, I don't know if they're evil so much as really, really stupid, in the sense that, okay, maybe they're making money for themselves. They might say I'm stupid, but like we're saying, they're so far away from any sort of goodness that they don't even see it, but I don't know if that's evil. Is that evil?
So I have two parts to the answer, both of which are actually pretty simple, because this is something that I've taught and wrestled with. First time that evil is mentioned in the Bible is it says sin beckons at the doorway, it crouches at the doorway and it beckons you to enter. We call it in Hebrew the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. It doesn't make you do anything. It just says, here's a choice for you. Do you want it? There's a movie that is really, I think, the greatest definition of evil that's ever been captured in film or entertainment. It's a movie directed by Taylor Hackford a number of years ago, starring Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves, called The Devil's Advocate, where Pacino plays the devil. And he makes this point: I didn't make you do anything. I just showed you there was another alternative. You went down that pathway. Evil is the choice. God gives us the choice to be good or evil. He gives us the choice to do good things or bad things. That way, when we choose good, it really means something. We're taught in Hebrew, we're taught that the angels only have one leg because they don't have a choice. They can only do good. They can only do their one purpose. But we could do good or bad. And God gives us that free will so that we can choose good. And as a result, it's that much more valuable, as opposed to if we had no choice.
Michael, is that the point to living, to choosing, is choosing good over evil? Is that the
I think that's an overarching point that I would put sideways as and related to Hebrew. There's a phrase called tikkun ha'olam, reparation of the world. The idea is that we each have a job to do. I can't do yours, you can't do mine. And it's like playing an instrument in an orchestra. We've got to find the right instrument. We've got to play our one note and play it in tune. And I've always said, if everyone was doing that, we'd have the sound of heaven on earth. That's what we need to do. And that means rejecting the choice of evil. Doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes, but there's a big difference between making a mistake and what these people are doing and what Iran is doing and what the Ayatollah is doing. And I think that we need to, as individuals in our own lives, really focus on making the world a better place in the way that we can with the skills and gifts that God gave to each of us. Whatever those, however large or small or whatever they may be. We have to do that in order to have peace. We have to do that to save this world from what is going on, both from Iran and the Quran, going on from that Red-Green Alliance with people like Fuentes and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. I think we need to wake up and really take care of each other in a different way, in a way that is loving and respectful, as opposed to what's going on in the world right now.
Do you see, I'm really big on science, and I'm going to give you an example here in a second, but I need to ask you this first. Do you see any contradiction between the Torah and your faith and scientific analysis?
Not at all. In fact, may I give you a Hebrew teaching? Is that okay?
Please, yes. Go ahead.
So if you look at this, it's different when you study the Torah. You study the book of Genesis. You study it in English. You're studying a translation, which by definition is an interpretation.
Right.
So what does it say in the Hebrew? It says in the beginning, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word for heavens in Hebrew is shemayim, which is composed of two words, esh and mayim. Esh meaning fire or gas, mayim meaning liquid, and aretz is land or sort of solid. So in the beginning, God created gas, liquid, solid, and then there was this tohu v'bohu. There was only chaos and confusion. And then the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, merachefet, which was going to pass very quickly over the depths. And to create a fire, there was a spark, and then there was creation. That actually sounds like the Big Bang Theory to me.
Yes, it does. I thought
and
that.
That's the Hebrew.
Yeah.
So there's this rabbi called Rabbi Isaac of Accra, 10th, 11th century, I think 10th century. And he determines the age of the universe from the moment of creation. And he comes up with this number. He does it based on intra-biblical, intertextual relationship. 1970s or 80s, MIT and Caltech did the same thing. They each calculated the age of the universe and out of every many billions of years. There's a 2 or 3% differential between what Caltech calculated and what this 11th century rabbi calculated. That's within a margin of error.
Yeah.
So there's no question for me, science, and you probably know, if someone said science without religion is dumb and religion without science is mute or something like that, or blind. I don't remember the quote, but so that's my take on it. I mean, what's yours?
Well, you were talking about the purpose of living being choosing between good and evil. There's a guy named Michael Newton who's passed now. He died about 7-8 years ago, but he made his career. He was a psychologist. He ended up interviewing under hypnosis hundreds of people who talked about their past lives. This is basically about reincarnation. But the real thing he was interested in is what happens in between lives. And he wrote several books on this. So hundreds of people told him basically the same story. And that is, they go to a giant, basically university in the sky, and they work with other people, and they choose to come back to Earth. It's a choice you have. But the thing I found really fascinating is that these people describe the fact that, okay, so your life is kind of laid out ahead of time, but there's an enormous amount of free will involved. So it's a combination of planning and chance. And I thought, well, that's kind of life in general, isn't it? And yeah, it is. So the thing is, okay, so you're going back for a purpose, but there's all sorts of crap that can go wrong that we can't predict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the opposite of death is not life. The opposite of death is birth. And life extends before birth and after death. That's in the Bible. Book of Jeremiah, God says to Jeremiah, I knew you before you were in the womb. So we know there's something before and after this physical life.
Yeah.
I've always found it fascinating. Whenever I've read any of the reports or any of the essays by people who had near-death experiences, they talk about there being a long tunnel, and they're comfortable, but there's this tunnel, and they're going through a tunnel to a bright white light. And we've all heard that and read that, right?
Right.
So it's always occurred to me that imagine that a newborn baby could speak. They could come out and speak coherently. And you say, okay, big newborn baby, what did you just experience? He would say, well, I was nice and comfortable where I was. And then there was this tunnel, and it was dark, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And I went through the tunnel, and I came to this light, and there were people recognizing me. It's the same process.
Yeah.
Birth and death are the same process. And they're opposite. Life extends before and after all of that. And we need to do what we need to do, doing the right thing. I mean, I try and teach my kids to be right and righteous. We really need to not just have faith or say words, but we need to act and to make this world a better place.
Let's end it there. That couldn't be put any better. I can't thank you enough for this. I hope you'll come back. We'll
I
do.
would love to, and thank you for the talk, Jim, and thank you for everything you're doing. And it'd be great to hang out again. Between the two of us, we live in the healthy states of California and Minnesota, apparently. So I think it's always good when people like us are able to at least connect to kind of heal from what the circumstances, environment around us.
Yeah.
So I thank you for everything.
I have family and I come to Los Angeles regularly, so maybe we should get together sometime. I'd like.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll go get a coffee. We'll go get a tea. We'll go get, if you drink, we'll go get a tequila. If you smoke cigars, we'll go smoke cigars.
I do all that stuff.
There you go.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless.
Our thanks to Rabbi Michael Barclay there for joining us, and what a great conversation that was too. We're not going to do a snooze news tonight. I did have something prepared, but believe it or not, I don't think I can top that. I think we'll just leave it at that for this evening. You know, sometimes it's just better to just move on. Monday, the 16th, March 16th, Katie Asher is going to be joining us. Her book is called The Book of Heaven, but that's probably not why you've heard of this woman. And matter of fact, you probably don't even recognize her name. She was the subject, her and our son Houston, of the podcast series called the Telepathy Tapes, which in December was the single most listened to podcast in America. It even beat Joe Rogan. The contention is that her severely autistic son, Houston, is telepathic. And she's written a book about this. The book is more the podcast was more scientifically oriented, trying to prove if this is true or not. The book is more about the spiritual aspects of this. And of course, based on just what you just heard with the rabbi, I'm highly interested in that. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen here. And we're taking Tuesday off. So that's our schedule in the next couple days. We'll be on, and we'll have shows for next Wednesday or Thursday. Don't know who the guests are going to be yet, but we're still working on it. So anyway, yeah, that's our show for tonight and this week. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you watching very, very much. Good night, Eccledani, wherever you are. Good night to you, wherever you may be. You guys have a nice weekend. We'll see you on Monday, folks. Take care.